Hey, what's going on YouTube? So tonight I'm going to do a little feeding video with my plecos. So I have a variety of different bristlenose plecos. So here's some grow outs of the albinos and the commons. I also breed long fins and super reds. With breeding all these plecos, I feed one type of food primarily, and it's a algae wafer. I actually buy this off of Amazon. Since I feed so much of it, I buy the 5-pound bag. I'll show the food here in a minute. I'll buy a 5-pound bag for about $40, and I'll go ahead and show that bag right now. So here you have it. It's a very large bag. It's from aquaticfoods.com, but I'll get it straight through Amazon because I buy stuff off Amazon all the time. You get the free shipping if you're a Prime member, which I am. So very large bag. You can see next to my hand how big that bag is. And this will last me a few months. I feed 1 to 2 algae wafers per pleco tank a day. So whether it's 1 in the morning, 1 at night, maybe half a wafer, maybe 2 or 3 wafers if there's a whole lot of plecos and I'm feeding a lot. So that fish food I've been using for, I've rebought it 3 or 4 times. So it's a 5-pound bag, about $42 the last time I bought it for that 5 pounds. And it works very well. So highly recommend this food. And especially if you have a lot of aquariums where you have a lot of fish that feed off of algae wafers, really good bang for your buck, and you don't have to worry about buying it through a direct source where you're paying the shipping. So Amazon's a real big help with that. I also buy my guppy flakes and some of my beef heart flakes through that same company. Very good company. I had problems one time and I contacted them and they refunded me and sent me another bag for free. So really reliable source. Will gladly stand by their products. So here you see you got one of my male bristlenose back there and some females and a lot of their babies. So what I'm going to do in this video, I want to go through and actually feed each of my tanks, and then I'd love to come back in maybe 5 or 10 minutes when they all start to swarm to that food and they smell it in the water, kind of give you guys an update and really see how these guys go crazy for this food. And I keep some driftwood in my aquariums for the plecos, but very little, to be quite honest. Some people say you can't breed them without anything but driftwood and lots of algae and plants and this and that. But I keep my tanks well cycled with a sponge filter, frequent water changes, and I feed these algae wafers every single day. So I'm going to go through and feed these fish, and we're going to come back and take a closer look and see how they like this food. In this tank here I have some fancy guppies growing out, just the babies. I pulled the pair. And I recently introduced 2 adult super red plecos. Hopefully they'll be breeding here in their pot back there I introduced. So I put a half wafer in for those 2. Down here I have, you can see a real nice fat female. She's probably ready to go into that cave and breed. So these are all blacks. There's a couple long fins, not many. They carry the gene of the long fin, but the male no longer is a long fin. So this tank I'm going to give 1 to 1.5 wafers. I'll toss those right in there. Anytime you have a pair and babies, you're giving at least 1 large wafer. When there's a lot of babies, especially multiple generations of babies, sometimes I'll give 2, and I'll definitely do that morning and night. See, that one already smells it. That's actually not a complete long fin, but definitely a long fin. See, his fin goes longer. He's actually a little bit of white in his tips. Really nice fish there. So I'll keep going down. This is one of those tanks I showed early on when I was talking. Whole lot of fish in this tank. So I'm going to give, it's actually a male albino. You can see that the babies are albinos. You can see his nose sticking out. And common. So he's breeding with common females. And they're throwing a nice like 50-50 mix along with some guppies in there breeding. Breeding any live bear, especially the smaller mouse with guppies and plecos, is a great combination. Makes the plecos feel safe because there's fish swimming above, and it helps the parents not eat their fry because there's always algae wafers in there, so they'll pick at those as well, and they're not as hungry to feed on their fry. So this tank's going to get 2 wafers. Typically I'll try to spread them out, and I'll also put them closer to the breeding caves. That way the parents, if they're in there hiding waiting to breed, they don't have to swim across the entire tank to get food, so they're more eager to come out, feed a little bit, especially at night. Feeding at night is very important for the plecos. So whenever the lights are off and the other fish aren't feeding, they can go ahead and go after that food. And you can see they're already smelling and taking right to it. Very cool. Moving down here, these are 20-gallon longs. So a little bit cloudier. See, I'm probably overfeeding a little bit in this aquarium, but also the plecos just go after that food and they kind of chew it up so it floats around the water. Not a whole lot to see here, but I'll put a full wafer in there still because they do eat it even though the water's a little dirty, so I only do one. Probably could put 2 wafers in there if that water's a little clearer. In here I have a long fin bristlenose male and some females. See one of the females there? He's in the cave, and they just bred the first time for me the last week or two. So here's an albino. See, there's no albino adults in this tank, but these came from the parents. See, I had those parents thrown half and half. These are some babies I grew out, and their parents were just like that. So they carry that gene. These guys will get a full wafer. They probably get a little bit more, but this tank's starting to cloud a little bit as well. And I'll put it right next to that flower pot, and there's a lot of babies on that piece of wood. They'll come right to that, no problem. Just grabbed another little handful of the food. In this tank I have some grow outs, so there's no parents in here breeding, but I do have maybe 20 to 30 plecos in this aquarium that are maybe 1 to 2 inches. See, here's a little bit of both. There's a 2 to 2.5 incher there and maybe like 1 inch underneath. This tank, and I have some mollies, they're very aggressive eaters. They'll get a broken flake, but it's going to be a wafer, but it's mostly a full wafer. So right, that wafer's a little bit thicker than the rest. Just took off like a third of it. I'll toss it in there. Another aquarium up here, I have some mollies. This is where my super red bristlenose plecos are breeding. You can see some of the babies down there. And then you can see the male's nose hanging out that. These are a ceramic flower pot, so they're safe for the aquarium, very affordable. I did not have the right size lid fit, so I turned it upside down and put it on the larger side. So that way it has almost completely darkness, small hole up top, and then the big hole in the side that I make for them. And these guys will get a full wafer. In here is mainly rams, but you can see I got a long fin growing out. Still always get a little chunk, just a little bit. I'll toss that in there for them. Rams will feed off that as well. This tank is a grow out as well. Pretty heavily populated with some 2 to 3 inch plecos. There's probably about 40 in this aquarium, maybe 50 or 60 if I were to kind of aim high, and just hopefully there's that many. But there's a whole bunch here. This tank I've been giving 2 almost every day, and the water has not yet gotten cloudy on me for the last 2 weeks. So they're eating this food in a hurry, and it's not really sitting in that tank long. You can see they're ready for water changes this weekend. The bottom's got a lot of debris. And here is my super red plecos. So I had maybe 8 of them as babies I bought, and I grew them all out. So I have 2 pairs now, and the rest are actually males. So I introduced some females. There's a big common female. There's an albino. I put a long fin in here. So I really gave them a whole different selection of females. And this tank's gonna get a full wafer. Something like this with multiple males, I want to give a whole wafer amount of food to the tank, but I don't want them to fight over that wafer when they're larger and they got their spines and everything. Sometimes I'll break them into like quarters. I'll break that whole thing into 4 pieces, and I'll still feed an entire wafer to the aquarium. So I'll put that 1 wafer in there for tonight. I don't always do it. At nighttime they're not as bad. Up here I've got I think a trio of plecos. One for sure is a long fin. That one there is not. But they'll get about halfway. For this is a long fin. Sorry for the glare though. I know it's hard to see. I actually have a flashlight. I'll turn on these guys so we can see them better. But I'll put the wafer in first. So they're getting almost a full wafer. Sometimes I'll put about a half. I got a flashlight in my pocket. We'll go ahead and shine on these guys a little bit. There you go. So that is an adult female longfin. She knows I've been feeding this food since she was a baby, so when it hits the water, they smell it and they know what time it is. There's a adult female. She's about full grown, a little bit smaller. You'll see that they grow at different sizes, so you have some strands that get larger and stay shorter than others, so she's already going right to that food. Then up here I have some grow outs. These guys will get about a small chunk to half a wafer. Toss it in there. Mainly albinos with 1 or 2 commons. This was a small spawn I had of young pairs in kind of a group setting where they went ahead and they actually bred without a flower pot, and there was eggs sitting on the bottom. So I scooped those eggs out, I tumbled them, and about a month or 2 months later, this is what I have, maybe 10 of these guys. And I got a yellow half black guppy in there as well, some fry. Just a female to drop her fry, and she had them right away. She's still gravid though, you can see she's getting nice and big. She'll have some more babes here soon. But this video is all about plecos. So you can see those guys there. Not the best quality at night because it's dark, but the light should focus more for us. There you go. Oh well, it's in and out, but I'm coming back to show these guys actually feeding. I'm just throwing food in the tank still. This tank here, I'm gonna grab some more food, but I have some more grow outs of the commons. Alright, I got some food here. I had about 30 in this aquarium, but now I scooped a lot of them out. I took one big net through, I picked up the sponge filter and let them swim off, and I caught almost 20 of them. Put them in another tank for grow outs, but these guys will get about half a wafer. The tank will just get really cloudy in this. It's just a 10-gallon aquarium. When they're small, it's fine, but as we get bigger, I'm feeding more. The tank will really get dirty. These hang-ons are cool. Save some space in a 10-gallon aquarium. These it's like a Dole, it has 2 sponge filters. It's a lot finer, so it catches more debris and they clog up faster. So they work well with small waste loads. When you're feeding plecos and you have a lot of fish in a tank, they do clog up. So that's why in my 20s and my 10s, I use those more like 7-inch standard sponge filters. So these guys will come to that food here shortly. In this tank here, and as I'm talking, I didn't realize how many tanks I have of plecos. I've been breeding them for a while, and I spread them out because I want to grow them and make sure I get the best pairs, but then it's hard to not breed a pair that's ready. Here I have some long fins. I'll give them about half a wafer. It's just them, there's no babies yet, but I still feed them pretty well. This bottom 40-gallon aquarium, I have some plecos breeding as well. I think I have a long fin male in here, but the rest are standard fin. There's actually some lemon drops in here. I was sold them as, they were called a lemon drop. So they look like a common to me. I think that one female might be. It's a little bit lighter color, but it's really hard to tell. So I might have a few males in here because that one outside's the male for sure, and he's not a long fin. I thought I had long fins in here, but you can see the babies as well. This tank will get a full wafer. That one's broke. I'll probably throw another piece in there. Get back to see those guys shortly. Here's that tank I showed in the beginning. There's probably 80 to 100 plecos in this tank. They were really spread out. I have some guppies in there. I just put one female in there and she had some babies about 2 weeks ago. But other than that, it was only plecos for quite some time. This tank always gets 2 full wafers. And this is a tank where I will break them up and just put them everywhere. But I already fed them this morning. Put a little corner, put a piece in that corner. And this tank will for sure be swarming here soon. Up top I got some females, albinos. These are guppies, they're breeding very well, the red deltas. But there are some adults in here. They'll get about half a wafer. Toss that in there for them. More of a glare on this tank. Down in this 29, I've done a highlight video on these guys. They're some of my spot plecos. So they're albinos, more of a yellow color, less of the white of the albino. And a few of them here, obviously not the ones that want to come out right now, have a very unique spot on them. I maybe have 5 in here. 1 large and 3 or 4 smaller ones. There's one, you can see that black spot. Very cool, I've never seen that pattern before in the plecos. Hopefully I could line breed this to really almost create my own strain, which a lot of people will have fish rooms and aquariums, and that's kind of the dream, to make your own fish and really just create something new and different, something you can put your name on. So these guys are awesome. I really hope I have success with them and get some cool things. Either way, I like them regardless. These guys get almost a full wafer because there are a lot of angelfish and rams in there, so everything gets fed. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a little bit more food and we're gonna keep on going. So here's my biggest population of plecos I've ever housed in an aquarium. They're 29 gallon. There's probably 200 to 300 plecos in this tank. No problem at all, I guarantee that. But there's commons, albinos, and this is where I've pulled a few of my spotted plecos. So it just goes to show, well, as I'm talking, I usually give this tank 2 to 3 wafers. I'm gonna go ahead and give 4 of them. I usually spread them, I'll put them all in this corner, kind of hopefully for this video I can get a nice swarm there. But as I was saying, it really goes to show that it is a numbers game. So say you got a 1% chance of producing something rare. If you have 200 fish, you may have 2 of those fish that come out to be something different. So it really boils down to that. Obviously you could have 1 baby and it could be the rarest fish ever, but just to help your odds and really make it just kind of more in perspective, I'm gonna take my flashlight out here and really show these fish before I come back to the feeding. All 4 walls on this aquarium are just covered. The air stones, the acrylic mops in there usually have a lot of babies. There's probably 3 to 4 generations of plecos in this tank. You can see some small babies, some adults, some medium plecos, and pretty much everything in between. So don't have to wait long. These guys know you gotta feed quick or the food's gone in a hurry. So they love these algae wafers. Like I said, I buy a 5-pound bag off of Amazon. It's really good quality food for a really good price. You can feed heavily and not go broke buying $5 to $10 bags that have 20 or 30 wafers in them. So I'm gonna have to hurry up and keep feeding these guys, and I maybe have 2 or 3 tanks left of plecos, but I know the other tanks are already starting to feed. So I'll wrap this up with the feeding and we'll go back and actually check these guys out further. This tank here is an angelfish grow out, but I got a couple of plecos under the sponge filter, so I'll put a half wafer in there. We'll keep going down. Here is some of my guppies, but you can see it's a very large albino bristlenose pleco, and I know I should, but I don't have any driftwood in this tank. I've had these fish breed and produce babies, and the babies grow out in here as well, or I can pull them and grow them out in a different tank. So driftwood definitely helps, I won't question that at all, but if you feed enough food is so important for breeding plecos and housing plecos. You can't stress enough, especially when you have a large amount of them. They're gonna eat all the algae in the tank and within a few days, so they can't feed off the algae in the aquarium. They're getting almost a full flake just because there's so many guppies in here. But very nice big albino male, female hiding under that sponge right there. We'll keep going, but these guys just really consume this food and they have a great appetite. And here's mostly baby germ blue rams, but I got a little baby pleco in there. So that was a bigger piece than I meant to put in there. But there's a little chunk of a wafer. It's actually, see, it's floating on me. So some of these wafers I bought from this company, they were floating, maybe half of them. And I really love this company. They're great, and like I said, I did email them about it and see that one's thinking just fine. And they replaced the entire bag free of charge. So tossing a little piece of wafer in there, the babies will feed off of that, and that pleco will go over there and feed off it. But that's actually a good example. Very rare, but if they do float, they actually did refund me for it. So some of these are actually from that bag where some of them floated. I was gonna throw the whole bag away. I usually put them in water, see which ones floated, throw them away, and the ones that sank, I would feed those. So these are some of those leftover wafers. So just goes to show I still got to use that food, and they refunded me right away. And see that baby pleco's going right to it. The tank next to it here is a 55. I had a bunch of rams in here. If you saw my last fish room tour, I just sold them actually today to the pet store, or I guess it would have been yesterday, but no. But I had maybe 30 rams in here. They were a gold blue hybrid. They got those, very cool fish. So I got some baby plecos in here and a pair. So they're producing, I believe, all commons, no albinos, if I'm correct. And this tank will get, see, there's still some algae in it from before. And honestly, after work, I may have thrown a half wafer in here. So just for over the nighttime, since I see that I was gonna do a half wafer, I'll just do kind of a chunk. So a little piece there. Probably won't get a big swarm because they don't have any fish competing for the food right now, which they don't really do a whole lot of damage compared to the plecos. But I'll just give them a little quarter-sized piece. This bottom tank, I think I have 1 or 2 plecos and a bunch of angels. I'll give them a little half a wafer. So I think that concludes all my pleco tanks. If I forgot any, I'll go back and feed them even if it's not on tape. But a lot of plecos here breeding and eating a lot of food. So now I'm gonna go through and walk through, put down my food, get my flashlight out, and we're gonna watch some of these guys really surround that food and go nuts for it. Down here is one of the 20-gallon tanks where I put, I believe, 2 full wafers in here. Sometimes I'll push it into the hiding places or under the acrylic yarn that I use. Then they'll still get it, but I can't see the wafer. So you can see there's actually a good amount of long fins in here. I can see 1 or 2 right up in the front. 3, I can see 3 right now that are medium size, a little bit larger than the rest. There's the female and another female. The male might be in his cave, but you can see they're definitely all coming out and they're swarming to that food. They can smell it right away and they know it's feeding time because this is their main source of food. There's some real small babies too. They just bred maybe last week, and these guys are starting to leave the cave. You can see that one in the flower pot. Those are brand new babies. He went right back in. So even them, they smell the food. They know all the other fish are feeding. They know something's going on. They'll leave the cave and come check stuff out for the first time. This tank here, you can see the male's on the sponge filter. He's out. A lot of these fish are over in the corner. You can see how active they are with their swimming back and forth. In the back, there's some more commotion. See, I'll walk to the tank. They slowed down a little bit, but they're all feeding off the food. And to be honest, I can't even find the wafers. I don't think they ate it that fast, but I really wouldn't be surprised if they already chewed that up. So I might even go back and put another wafer in this tank before the video's over, because there are a ton of plecos in this tank and they need a lot of food to do well. One of the sponge filter might even have a spot on its tail. That one white one right in the middle of the screen. I might have to pull him out. That's pretty cool. If that pattern stays, he's got some black on his side of his fin. It's really hard to see in this video, but in person you can get more of an idea. And there's one of the albino females over there by the flower pot. Up here is the molly tank, and these guys push it aside pretty quick. It's hard to see, but they'll feed off of that. Oh, there's one of the red plecos you can see hiding behind there. She actually pushed the wafer back there, so she came out of the cave to come feed. And it's just the 2 in here, so there's not as much commotion, but you can see her tail and a little bit of her back there. It's one of the super reds. The rams just all came up because they saw me. They're used to feeding off top, but they were all down there feeding, and you can see the longfin coming around. Now if they left, he knows it's time he can get into the food. Their colors are starting to, they're not even that colored up yet, but the flashlight really shows their color, so you can see these guys are maturing pretty nicely. In with the super reds. They're not swarming the food as much as I'd like, but the mollies, like I said, I've been feeding heavier, so I've been giving a little bit extra food in these tanks, and they probably aren't that hungry because there's been food in there and they break it up into bits. But you can see they're out. Definitely more so than we walked by the first time. They're drawn to that food. Even the female right there. Really nice fish. I love the super reds. This is my first time successfully breeding these fish, and all the fish I'm breeding right now were babies in this room at one point. I have not bought any breeder plecos in the last probably 2 years. So I guess this would be the exception. These guys are about a year old. So the super reds are the last fish I bought, and I bought them as babies and grew them out. Moving into this tank here, you can see there's a wafer right in the middle, and they're all surrounding it. They kind of break it apart and it falls to the side, and other fish will go after that, so the swarm doesn't really stay in one spot the whole time. But you can see some hungry fat plecos. There's a second wafer up here. There's a whole pile of them. That's a nice shot right there. And they're all just working on that food, trying to get their mouth on it. And they'll do this for the next hour or so. But we don't have all day. Down here was that cloudier tank. And the reason it's cloudy, because there's some big plecos. Look at that female right there. So there's the algae wafer, she's pushing her way in. And see, they're kind of fighting over a little bit. You can see she's pushing them out of the way. She's got her fins out real tight, like she's trying to push them away. She's not gracefully eating, I guess you could say. See, she's trying to just get to the food and get them away. But they're eating it they're eating great in here. They're getting big. You can even see there's some small babies. They're still breeding. My battery's starting to get low, so I'll have to speed this video up a little bit. But you can see the babies in this tank. The female is starting to scatter a little bit with the light on her. But they're feeding off that wafer I put in the corner. It's back there. A lot of babies around here. They're not right on that wafer, but they're all in the area. See all their tails wiggling? The male might even come out to feed. Here's that tank of the super reds. Really nice shot of the super red there. Got a common on the front. 2 albinos. And I'll probably go tuck away and hide. There's the food he's pushing back. It's hard to see, but there's the algae wafer next to the sponge filter. Up here you can see they're chewing on that. They just scattered because I walked up. But these guys will all be heading over here onto this wafer back. It's always cool to look at the fish with the flashlight because you can just really see that much more of their color. I have lighting on my tanks, but it's not the strongest. It's a little bit dim. Here, if I don't move too quick, there's a whole bunch of plecos on this wafer. They're feeding on that wafer there, and no one's found that one yet. They swarmed. You can see, remember that wafer I put over here? Look how much is left. I just fed that maybe 5 or 10 minutes ago, and now it's just a little piece. They've been chewing on that pretty good. There was a whole swarm that was trying to sneak up on them when I was going sideways, but they knew I was coming. Down here, can't spot the food. Oh yeah, there's in the back if I can zoom in on it. There's 4 or 5 babies all on it right there. The rest of them are all swimming around. You can see those long fins right there. There's those long fins I was talking about. The babies on the mom. Swam off. But they're all feeding off that food there. There's some adults real close by. Now one there, it's almost got a red to it. That's really cool. It's a long fin too. That's gonna be a really nice pleco. So this is the first time I've actually seen this. That's like a calico long fin, it looks like. So that's gonna be really cool. Hopefully that fish grows up to be a good size. I can separate that. Yeah, it's a long fin red. I see a few of them in here. That's really cool. So I don't know if I have any super reds in this tank. I know I did at one point. I tried to breed them in here. I think I have a few. Those are like a calico. Wow. We're seeing it for the first time together. That's really cool. The one on the left, if you're looking at the same fish I am, I know it's hard to point him out. You can see his tail right now. He's dark with a little bit of orange on his fin. That one right there is definitely a red. So I might have a red female in here. I'll have to go and actually check that. But if not, these guys might just be throwing it because they have that gene in them. That is a really cool looking fish. And it's a long fin too. That's awesome. And these guys are so small, this is just the time you can start telling their color. They pretty much are born with their color, but here's another one right here. See that? It's a calico. That is an awesome looking fish. Really excited about this guy. This is cool. I'll have to go back and these guys might get their own highlight video and I'll take some pictures. But it's hard to keep a camera steady because I'm so close. But that is red and black long fin pleco. I don't know the right name for it just yet, but that is awesome. Wow. Alright, well, I guess I'll keep moving. I want to go back and keep recording those guys. But my battery's going to die. I'm just recording with my phone today. So I only got 10%, and I might have to get cut off and come back to this. That's really cool. That's exciting. This tank here with the spot plecos. Speaking of cool plecos, can't even find the wafer. But there's another one, spotted ones. That one's got it on its back. The others have it on their head. There's the big one in the cave. That's cool. If it's a male who's already taken the cave over. He's the original. That's the first one I ever found, and I kept and grew out. He's got a big black spot between his eyes. Saw it as a baby. I thought it would fade, and it never did, and I've gotten more since. So here's that big swarm. I gave these guys 3 or 4 wafers. Oh, they're scattering. But it's pretty cool. They couldn't even see the food till they scattered. So sorry, I thought I saw something up top. But yeah, they love this food. They're going nuts for it. You can see there's tiny babies in there with them, and they'll sneak their way up. They'll feed. The parents will chew it up, and they'll actually break small pieces off that they'll go after. I mean, this tank is just so heavily stocked, and besides the water changes I can think that I do, like obviously that's my work, but this food has been a huge help to this. And if I couldn't afford to buy this much food at a reasonable price, they wouldn't be getting this much. I'd be feeding a lot more sparingly, and they would never reproduce and grow this well. So being able to get that 5-pound bag that'll last me a month to 3 or 4 months, it really depends on how many plecos I have at the time. For $40, I can't beat that. These guys are still hiding in there. I bet they're in the middle of breeding. The males usually won't leave the caves whenever they're trying to draw a female in. They'll almost kind of fast themselves for a week or so till they breed, raise the fry, then they'll leave for a little while to take a break. So they're hanging out that spot. The guppies are feeding off it. Once those lights turn off, it might be a whole different story though. Down here I can see the pleco. This one's a little bit deformed. It's kind of funny looking. I just kept it almost as a pet. See that? It's like a short-nosed pleco. You can see in its reflection how short his nose is. Head on, it's harder to tell. He's kind of like my special fish that I kept. But he cleans the algae off the glass and he does a good job. There's only 2 in here. They're just helping clean up the tanks for me. They're not really grow outs or breeding pairs or anything. Up here I got some little plecos. We're actually pushing each other around for that food. That one right there just pushed away the other. Those 2 are chasing around. These are all those babies. You can see the dad's in his cave. I don't know if anything's going on here. He's still going after that wafer. That's kind of what helps when it's not bare bottom. They'll get on that wafer and they'll push it away. The other tanks, they can push that wafer into the plants or hiding places and it'll kind of wedge it, and they'll go ahead and keep feeding. Alright guys, I think I went through all the tanks. I know my battery's getting low, so I kind of sped it up and I rambled a little bit. But coming back to it, spirulina, algae and veggie wafers, made in the US, which is also a huge plus. Aquaticfoods.com, they also have blackworm. They do blackworms and beef heart and things like that. Gives you nutrition facts. This is, it shows the 5-pound bag. And they give you a sticker for the receipt I should put on the back. Yep, so you can see I bought some other foods. I bought Guppy Flakes. Let me see when the date is. So that is 5/15/28. So wow, this bag's going on 4 or 5 months right now. I didn't even realize how long it's been. So I did buy a second bag. I want to give all the credits to this because they did refund me this. So I've been using the old bag of food, so I may have got 2.5 pounds of good food out of it. And that bag I think I just finished off the other day, and this is probably halfway down. So say that's 8 pounds of food, and I'm not even done with it, going on 4 to 5 months. I mean, it's basically, at this point, 5 months. So, really good bang for my buck. I'm spending about $10 a month to feed all these plecos. So, mainly wanted to show kind of the plecos and a little bit of a feeding frenzy today. Talk to you guys a little bit and show off the fish. Really cool discovery in this 40-ounce tank, getting those red calico and longfin to top it off. So good day in the fish room. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this tour and kind of me just walking around and showing you stuff as I look as well. So thank you guys for watching. If you've not yet subscribed, please subscribe. If you like this video or you want to see more content like this video, comment and just stay tuned. Thank you.